As the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, prime time Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, going to talk about Brock Purdy. We're going to talk about Brock Purdy because there have been a number of narratives surrounding this particular player. He is, it's funny, Brock seems like, personally, like one of the nicest guys in the world. Man, it was a darn Paw Patrol commercial during the Thanksgiving parade. I watched that, I was like, yeah, Purdy seemed like the type of dude to be in a Paw Patrol. I'm not even judging him for it. He's a nice guy. He's got the Dakotas boots. He's got a number of endorsements. But speaking of Purdy's money, this is the third year of a 4-year contract. He was, of course, Mr. Relevant, a 7th-round pick in 2022. He does not have a 5th-year option. So the Niners going to have to make a big decision this offseason. Do we let Purdy play out the deal, or do we give him a new one that would pay him, we assume, in excess of $50 to $55 to maybe even $60 million? I am here to tell you it would be one of the worst mistakes in the history of the franchise. Here's why. We're going to show you some numbers and some evidence to back this up. What was the main narrative? Because I've always said, among the Purdy supporters, the Purdy detractors, I've been somewhere in the middle. I tend to lean more toward the detractors, but I also have acknowledged way better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Moves well, accurate most of the time, plays well within the Shanahan offense. Purdy's a good player. I've always said that. He's a good player. There was a time I thought he was elite at the start of last year, and then he had that 3-game stretch. I was like, yeah, my bad. Let's take a step back. But for the Purdy supporters, what was the main thing they told us last season? When Brock Purdy, up until the Christmas Day debacle against the Baltimore Ravens, was not only an MVP candidate, in some sports books, leading the MVP race, including over his teammate Christian McCaffrey, including over Lamar Jackson, who ultimately took the award, including over Dak Prescott, among others who contended for this award. Tyreek Hill, remember, had a great year and was an MVP candidate. What was the main narrative from those supporters? Well, I'll get into that after we show you what Purdy has done this season, because he hadn't been that great. Not been bad, hadn't been that great, though. So 23rd in touchdown to interception ratio is not good. 13th in pass yards per game, 18th in completion percentage, 14th in passer rating, and 21st on individual quarterback record. And none of those are going to blow you out of the water. They're not that good. The Purdy supporters say, hey, wait a minute, Bryson. Deebo Samuel is a shell of himself. And Kittle's been out of the lineup. So is Trent Williams. A number of defensive starters like Nick Bosa have been. You talk about offensively, again, Ayuk has missed most of the year and wasn't that good before he went down. Christian McCaffrey was out for the majority of the first half of the season, really all of it if you want to be technical, and is going to miss the last quarter of the season with a PCL injury. What do you want him to do? Oh, I'm not going to let him get away with this one, because the narrative last season was, from the Purdy supporters, when Brock statistically was the best quarterback in football last season, was tops in passer rating, top 5 in all the major stats. Talk about touchdown, interception ratio, completion percentage, all these different things. But tops the NFL by a healthy margin in passer rating. And when folks like me had the audacity to say, God, I don't know, McCaffrey's having an first-team All-Pro season, and Ayuk's awesome, and Kittle's the best or second-best tight end in football, and Trent Williams is the best left tackle, and Kyle Shanahan is one of the smartest offensive coaches of our generation. And by the way, they happened to go to 2 Super Bowls prior to his arrival. Sorry, a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship prior to his arrival. Well, call's crazy, but I think we should probably look more towards them. Not that he's not playing well, but those guys are really, 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 really good. And the response was, can't give him credit. Jimmy G wasn't putting up those numbers. Jimmy Garoppolo was out here leading the conference, or leading the sport in passer rating. It was more Purdy than it was the offense. That was the narrative. Purdy was the driving force behind a tremendous San Francisco 49ers offense. And folks like myself say, yeah, let's make conditions less than ideal, also known as the National Football League. when you're going to play from behind, when you're going to play with guys missing. But let's look at Purdy when guys aren't missing, because good God almighty, he is awesome. Come on, look at that. When McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, and Trent Williams, when those guys are on the field with Brock Purdy, this is what he does. 29 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 266 pass yards per game, completes basically 70% of his throws, a passer rating of 120, and a record of 13-1. That one loss, the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs. We're not going to hold that against Brock. It's the Chiefs, the dynasty. Those numbers are off the charts. Yeah, and then when you take one or many, but in some of these cases, just one of those guys off the team, when any of those guys miss any action, Brock Purdy is an average quarterback. As many touchdowns as picks, pass yards per game goes from about 266 to 251. Completion percentage goes from essentially 70 to 64. Passer rating plummets from 120 to 86. And he goes from a 13-1 record to a 5-10 record. So he's a shell of himself. It's almost as if when you add great players, the quarterback, by definition, is going to get better. For the record, the Niners are beat to hell now. McCaffrey gone. Ayuk gone. They just put Jordan Mason on IR. Nick Bosa's beat up. Trent Williams is dealing with a tragedy in his personal life. Kittle's been in and out of the lineup. The main thing was, Bryson. 21st ranked offensive line. Trent Williams is great. He's the best left tackle in football. Nobody disagrees with that. But the other guys, bums. I looked at Pro Football Focus. You think they know football? They have the Niners as the 12th best offensive line in the league. 12th highest graded O-line in the National Football League. So, if the problem was the O-line, if the thing was, the O-line's not that good. O-line's pretty good this year. Give a quarterback a great O-line, great weapons. Trust me, he will take the O-line. O-line's fine this year for San Francisco. Speaking of less than ideal circumstances for Brock Purdy, here to me is always, this has been the thing I've always got him on. When trailing in the second half of his career in the regular season, this is who he is. A bad quarterback. Great when everybody's there. Average when somebody or multiple somebodies aren't there. And in any situation, trailing the second half, he's a bad quarterback. 64% completion. About 1,100 yards. 4 touchdowns to 10 picks. And a passer rating of 70. That's who he is. And yet the 49ers very well may pay this guy $60 million. You do realize when you pay a quarterback $60 million, or at least in the ballpark, let's say he doesn't get Dak's contract, let's say he gets Trevor Lawrence or Tua's contract. In the ballpark, 55 mil-ish per year. You do realize as bad as this 49ers roster is, it will only get worse if that's the case. And as great as Purdy is, he is certainly more reliant on the pieces around him than they are on him. Bro, Brandon Allen's a backup. If that's going to be the conversation, Purdy versus Brandon Allen, Purdy as a player is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I have said that for 2 years on this show. The team result, exactly the same. A conference title game appearance. Now, we'll give Purdy the benefit of the doubt because he blew out his elbow in that game. So that loss was not Purdy's fault. And then they've also gone to the Super Bowl, in which Garoppolo was not good in his Super Bowl, and Purdy was fine in his. He was okay. It wasn't great. He was fine. Team results, identical. So Purdy is just miles better than Jimmy Garoppolo. If he is the franchise-altering in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go, can he convert a third down? Can he convert? By the way, Purdy was pretty good in third down in the Super Bowl. But the third down, which would have burnt clock, forced Kansas City to use their timeouts, Patrick Mahomes does not touch the ball the rest of regulation. Maybe Jake Moody walks off, maybe he doesn't, but you put him in position to. So I think, again, that's where quarterbacks should define it. The play. The big third downs, red zone opportunities, fourth downs. And the fact of the matter is this with Brock Purdy, the idea, this is what I really get bothered by. When I hear him compared to other quarterbacks with similar stats, the main guy and this may not come as a shock to any of you guys, those that know me and watch the show, is Dak Prescott. Because Purdy and Dak's numbers have been relatively similar. Purdy actually beats Dak in quite a few categories individually. Yeah, Dak has Mike McCarthy. Brock Purdy is Kyle Shanahan, who's having a down year, and I've said that on the show. I have not been thoroughly impressed with what I've seen from Kyle Shanahan. McCarthy and Shanahan both get fired tomorrow. Who do you think gets picked up quicker? It's not even close. And McCarthy probably gets hired. Shanahan's off the market tomorrow. Weapons, not remotely close. Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and that's literally where it ends. Dallas, there was a point in this year where Dallas was dead last in the NFL in separation. Okay, offensive line, comparable, but this year the Niners have had a better O-line than Dallas has. And defensively, we know San Francisco tends to be far more consistent on that side of the ball than the Cowboys are. By the way, the Cowboys in the 5 years prior to Dak's arrival, 4 games under 500, 1 playoff appearance. San Francisco and Purdy's arrival, hanging around 500, but that's partly because the first few seasons riddled by injuries and the team wasn't that good some of those seasons. But with a Super Bowl appearance and 5 playoff wins. Sorry, I apologize. 4 playoff wins. Still, tomato, tomato. San Francisco's done it before. They moved on from a quarterback who lost the Super Bowl and then lost another NFC Championship game who they weren't sure could elevate the talent that they had alongside of them. Now, it was a mistake. Trey Lance was not the guy, but they stumbled into Purdy, who was better. You're telling me they can't find a quarterback? Maybe not in this year's draft, because I love Shador. They're not getting Shador. Cam Ward, maybe. Cam Ward's probably not falling to the Niners unless they finish 5-12. Then maybe they do get Cam Ward. But next year, why, sure, they could draft a quarterback. Give Purdy another year. I'm not saying trade the guy. Give him another year. He's dirt cheap. See what he does. Debo's probably gone. I predicted that during the offseason. After Ayuk got paid, I'm like, Debo's out of there. They just can't make that situation work with their cap. McCaffrey comes back. We imagine healthier. Kittle, all the guys. Restart. You're not making the playoffs. Let's just fresh slate. Is he going to be closer to this guy in 2024 who, when the situation isn't perfect, isn't great? Or is he going to be the guy, closer to the guy, with circumstances we imagine in 2025 that probably aren't going to be similar to 2023, in which a bunch of all-stars stay healthy basically start to finish, which that's not the NFL. It's not how it works. My guess is he'll probably be closer to this guy. So for those that have said, hey, the Niners' success last year's offense was more of a Purdy thing than an everybody else thing. And Ayuk, a Debo, a particularly Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, who to me were the 2 most valuable guys to that offense. A Kyle Shanahan thing, the coach. You know, the one who made Matt Ryan an MVP, Matt Schaub a Pro Bowler, and Jimmy Garoppolo got into the Super Bowl and NFC Championship game. That Kyle Shanahan? No, it's a Purdy thing. Well, now once those guys are gone and Purdy's there, average. I've always said Purdy's a good quarterback. He's clear. I'm not going to sit up here and say he's a backup. He's not Jimmy Garoppolo. I've said for years, better than Garoppolo. $60 million. Heck, $50 million. You're gutted as is because of injuries. You'll be gutted because those guys are never coming back because they'll be gone if you pay Brock Purdy that money. So, on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, listen, I ain't trying to cost somebody money. I hope Purdy gets, he's got plenty of money in off-field endorsements. He's certainly been one of the most underpaid players in the league. He's making $1 million a year, in some cases less, early in his career, and he's certainly outplayed his contract. The contracts, when you sign them, they're about what you will do for me, not what you have done for me, or not all what you have done for me, what you will continue to do. By the way, now Purdy has an injury history. Shoulder, elbow, all these things have to be taken into consideration with the San Francisco 49ers. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.